America, the land of the free, is facing a new threat. This time it's not from a foreign power, but from within its own borders. A chilling strategy dubbed Project Esther has emerged from the shadows. This blueprint, crafted by the Heritage Foundation, aims to crush dissent and silence opposition. Its targets: activists, academics, and anyone daring to criticize Zionism and white supremacy. This isn't just another example of partisan bickering. This is about the very soul of American democracy. Project Esther seeks to redefine the rules of engagement, transforming legitimate criticism into an act of treason. It's a dangerous game, one that could have devastating consequences for the future of free speech and civil liberties in America. This isn't hyperbole, this is the reality we face. And it's time we all started paying attention. The architects of this strategy have cloaked themselves in biblical imagery, invoking the story of Queen Esther. Esther, a Jewish queen in the Persian Empire, is held up as a model. She exposed a plot to exterminate the Jewish people, saving them from annihilation. But this historical parallel is as misleading as it is dangerous. Project Esther twists the narrative, casting modern-day critics of Israel as modern-day Hamans, the villain of the biblical story. This manipulation of scripture serves a sinister purpose: to demonize dissent and paint those who question Zionist policies as enemies of the Jewish people. This is not about protecting Jewish people. This is about shielding the policies of a foreign government from criticism, even when that criticism comes from Jewish voices within America. It's a cynical ploy designed to silence debate and stifle any opposition to the status quo. The objectives of Project Esther are clear: to eliminate any challenge to the dominant narrative on Israel and Palestine. This means purging educational materials that dare to present a balanced view of the conflict. It means silencing academics who challenge the official narrative. And it means intimidating students into submission. This isn't just about silencing criticism of Israel, it's about controlling the very information that Americans have access to. It's about creating an echo chamber where only one perspective is allowed to be heard. This is how authoritarian regimes operate. They control the flow of information, they silence dissent, and they rewrite history to suit their own agenda. And that's exactly what Project Esther is designed to do. The re-election of Donald Trump has emboldened the architects of this strategy. Trump, with his history of inflammatory rhetoric and his close ties to the far right, has created a political climate where hate and intolerance can flourish. His administration has made no secret of its support for Project Esther. Key appointments, like the installation of Kristi Noem, known for her draconian laws against boycotting Israel, as Secretary of Homeland Security, send a chilling message: dissent will not be tolerated. This is a dangerous escalation. Trump's embrace of Project Esther signals a shift from tacit support of Zionist policies to open endorsement and aggressive action. It's a clear sign that the Trump administration is willing to use the full force of the government to silence its critics and crush any opposition. Section 5. The Unholy Alliance, Zionism and White Supremacy. One of the most disturbing aspects of Project Esther is the way it seeks to unite Zionist groups and white supremacists under a common banner. This unholy alliance is built on a foundation of shared hatred. Hatred of Muslims, hatred of people of color, and hatred of anyone deemed un-American. This alliance is mutually beneficial. Zionist groups gain access to the organizational muscle and street-level power of white supremacist organizations. White supremacists, in turn, gain a veneer of legitimacy by aligning themselves with a cause they claim is about Jewish self-defense. This alliance is a threat to everyone who believes in equality and justice. It's a dangerous escalation that could lead to increased violence and intimidation against minority communities. Section 6. Echoes of McCarthy, Weaponizing, Fear and Patriotism. The tactics employed by Project Esther should be familiar to anyone with even a passing knowledge of American history. They echo the dark days of McCarthyism, when fear and paranoia were used to silence dissent and crush political opposition. Like McCarthy, the proponents of Project Esther rely on guilt by association, innuendo, and outright lies to discredit their opponents. They brand anyone who criticizes Israel as an anti-Semite, a Hamas sympathizer, or even a terrorist. This is not about protecting Jewish people from hate. It's about using accusations of anti-Semitism as a weapon to silence legitimate criticism of Israeli policies. It's about creating a climate of fear where people are afraid to speak out for fear of being branded an enemy of the state. Section 7. The Crumbling Facade of American Democracy. Project Esther is more than just a threat to free speech. It's an assault on the very foundations of American democracy. It undermines the principles of free inquiry, open debate, and the right to dissent. When the government has the power to silence its critics, when it can dictate what can and cannot be said, then democracy is in peril. Project Esther is a stark reminder that the freedoms we often take for granted are fragile and must be constantly defended. The stakes are high. If we allow Project Esther to succeed, it will set a dangerous precedent, one that could have a chilling effect on free speech and dissent for generations to come. Section 8, from Indiana to Florida, a harbinger of things to come. Unfortunately, Project Esther is not just a theoretical threat. It's already being put into practice in states across the country. In Indiana and Florida, laws have been passed that target academics and activists who dare to criticize Israel. These laws are a harbinger of things to come. They're a test case for the broader strategy outlined in Project Esther. If these laws are allowed to stand, they will embolden other states to follow suit, creating a patchwork of repressive legislation across the country. This is a slippery slope. What starts with silencing criticism of Israel can easily be expanded to target other forms of dissent. Today it's Palestine, tomorrow it could be Black Lives Matter, environmental activists, or anyone else who dares to challenge the status quo. Section 9. A call to action resisting the siren song of tyranny. We cannot afford to be silent in the face of this threat. We must resist Project Esther with every fiber of our being. This is not a partisan issue. It's about defending the fundamental principles of freedom and justice that America claims to stand for. We must speak out against this dangerous strategy. We must educate ourselves and others about the threat it poses. We must support organizations that are fighting for civil liberties and human rights. And we must hold our elected officials accountable for their actions. The future of American democracy is at stake. The time to act is now. Let us not allow the siren song of tyranny to drown out the voices of freedom and justice.